Breaking news, Diddy has been denied bail.
Developing at 5, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back inside a federal courtroom here in New York.
All right, a trial date's now been set for May 5th of next year. Lisa Evers live in Lower Manhattan with the very latest today. Lisa.
Well, Stephen, Natasha, this was Sean Diddy Combs' third time in the courthouse you see right behind me, his first time before a new judge.
There's really no deal that the U.S. Attorney's Office can offer, and it's certainly not one that Diddy will accept. It would involve decades in federal prison. We're talking about mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years for both the drug charges and the sex trafficking. So we know that Diddy has fought charges before. There were state charges, there were gun-related, the nightclub shooting with J-Lo, but he's going to dig in his heels, and this case is going to trial. So if you're prosecutors, you really want to make sure that your evidence is bulletproof before you go down that route.
Is Sean Diddy Combs coming out in 2025? That's the question as his legal team fights for his bail ahead of a trial set for May 2025. His attorneys are pushing to overturn the decision, insisting he's no flight risk. With mounting evidence and more accusers stepping forward, all eyes are on whether Combs will be released soon or remain in custody as his trial approaches.
He appeared confident, he stood tall, but most importantly and most notably, when he walked inside the courtroom, the first thing that he looked at was his family. As soon as he saw his family, he just lit up. Another thing to note, too, is he wasn't shackled, but he was wearing a khaki prison-like jumpsuit when he appeared inside court, and his family appeared on their end very just happy to see him.
The main takeaways we got today was now we have a tentative trial date, May 5th, 2025. This was something that Sean Combs' defense was very adamant about. They did not want to waive his speedy trial rights, and so they are proceeding on a path towards May 5th, 2025 trial date. Also heard from the government saying that their investigation continues and that they may actually file a superseding indictment. And you know what that means, more potential charges. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks as the exchange of discovery continues, as the investigation continues. This was a hearing really to just give the judge an update on, where everyone is and the status of the exchange of evidence and something, they were throwing out very large numbers about the amount of, terabytes of evidence, that were seized in 3 different searches of Combs's homes and of himself earlier this year. And so really it was just a status update on where things are and what other requests the parties have at this point.
Sean Diddy Combs, one of the most recognizable names in music, is now facing a new chapter in his life, but this time in federal court. The courtroom scene was a stark contrast to the glamorous life Combs is known for. This time, he appeared before U.S. District Judge Aaron Subramanian, with his family present to support him, including his mother Janice Combs, who flew in from Florida, and his son Christian.
Yes, I mean, this time, he had 2 rows of family there. And in this case, last time, at his bond hearings, his sons were present. This time, his daughters were present, as well as his mother. And there was just something a little more, he was excited, I guess, to see them. Last time, I think it was in the September bond hearings. It was just after he'd been arrested. He seems a little shell-shocked, I guess, for lack of a better word. But this time he came into the courtroom. He saw his family in the rows. He smiled very big. He waved at them. And then even after he sat down, he waved at them again. So it was a really surreal experience. It's always humbling. It's always interesting to see these stars in court. They humble themselves. It's a way we're not used to seeing them. And so, especially not used to seeing, Sean Diddy Combs getting excited over seeing his family while he is dressed in a 2-piece jail-issued outfit. Wow.
All right, Emanuela, thank you so much for that report. Truly appreciate it. And speaking to that point of seeing him in that way, I remember seeing a quote from Sean Diddy Combs that he said he never wore the same clothes twice.
Oh, and now every day,
now he's got to wear that little beige outfit.
Isn't that so? But then he is smiling and glad to see his family. And you heard initially reports of he's on suicide watch, and then they said no, anybody at this level of famous is on suicide watch. But to hear that demeanor is a little surprising.
Yeah, and you know what really is interesting? One of his new attorneys is Sam Bankman-Fried's attorneys. Now, he's the guy who was involved in that crypto whole sort of shebang. And, you know, it shows that these guys, they were off in a different part of the jail together.
Yes.
So they got to talking, and he said, you know what, I got a good lawyer for you.
Use this one. That's exactly what happened.
The October 10th hearing focused on scheduling, with the next status conference planned for December 18th. Combs' attorney, Anthony Rico, is currently appealing his bail denial, which is being reviewed separately by the appeals court. Rico emphasized the gravity of the case, aiming to push back against the online clowning and negative publicity surrounding his client.
Combs' attorney Anthony Rico sat by his side throughout the proceeding. He's handling the appeal of his bail denial, which is a separate case in the appeals court.
He's making an adjustment. He had his family here today to support him. We really want to put an end to all of the clowning that we see on the internet. This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences.
The judge set a trial date of May 5th, 2025. The lead federal prosecutor took issue with Combs' attorney Mark Agnefilo's extensive comments in a TMZ documentary, alleging the government was guilty of racial bias and targeting Combs. Agnifilo complained about government leaks to the media. The result was a mutual gag order.
I made a request for the judge to issue what we call the gag order. And the judge is going to issue it on a reciprocal basis. So I'm not going to say anything that I didn't say in my papers and in court.
While Combs maintains his innocence, the accusations against him are severe. He faces allegations of leading a criminal enterprise that sexually abused and exploited women. These claims come as part of a wider investigation, and the recent hearing confirmed that prosecutors are still reviewing massive amounts of digital evidence.
A lot of people are asking, why didn't they discuss the issue of bail this week? Well, we know there was a petition filed for a third crack at it, but that is not with this court. That's actually going on simultaneously in the Court of Appeals. This is a higher court, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. They're going to decide if Combs should be granted bail. Now, Combs' attorney, Alexandra Shapiro, filed a motion for pretrial release earlier in the week with the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and Shapiro opened the motion by writing, "This case does involve extreme and unusual circumstances, but none that typically foreclose bail or warrant forcing Sean Combs to defend himself from a prison cell." What is extreme and unusual about this case is that Mr. Combs was detained immediately after he was charged, even though he has been in the spotlight his entire life, with many of his purported antics and episodes being widely reported in the press and known to law enforcement authorities. Indeed, hardly a risk of flight, he is a 54-year-old father of 7, a U.S. citizen, an extraordinarily successful artist, businessman, philanthropist, and one of the most recognizable people on earth. The sensationalism surrounding his arrest has distorted the bail analysis. Mr. Combs was not released pending trial, even though he offered to comply with restrictive conditions that would have prevented any conceivable risk of flight or danger. And talking about that, Combs, by the way, had offered a $50 million bail package, putting up his Miami home and his mother's home as collateral. He promised to stay in close contact with authorities, only speak to certain people, even offered to have a third-party security team to monitor his house if he should be under home confinement. But 2 different judges denied him bail, so Combs has been behind bars since September 16th at the Metropolitan Detention Center out in Brooklyn. And one of the reasons that was cited for keeping Combs locked up is his alleged influence and reach, because prosecutors claim that Combs had engaged in witness tampering and possible intimidation.
Federal prosecutor Mark Agnifilo expressed frustration at the media leaks surrounding the case, accusing the government of using these leaks to unfairly influence public perception. In response, the court has issued a gag order to restrict public discussion of the case from both sides.
Criminal defendants, depending on where they are. So a criminal defendant who is out a lot of the times is okay with things taking their time, doing full investigation, not rushing to the end of the race. Whereas if you're incarcerated, you're trying to get out of there as soon as possible. And so I'm sure that he wants the quickest possible date. However, given the amount of evidence that there is in this case, discovery, investigation that needs to be done on the defense side, I would gamble that May 2025 would be too early of a date for a case of this magnitude. It probably will take them longer.
Meanwhile, women's rights attorney Gloria Allred, who represents some of the accusers in civil lawsuits, spoke of the trauma her clients have endured, adding weight to the already intense proceedings.
It's really all about power and abuse of power.
Prominent attorney Gloria Allred, who has represented accusers of Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and R. Kelly, speaking exclusively with Eyewitness News. She now represents an undisclosed number of Sean Diddy Combs' alleged victims, including Talia Graves.
The trauma of the assault has taken a toll on my mental health.
Tonight's 2020 special, The Secret Life of Diddy, detailing Combs' fall as he faces individual and class action lawsuits and federal charges of racketeering conspiracy, forced sex trafficking, and prostitution. He's pleaded not guilty, his attorney saying prosecutors are seeking to criminalize sex that was consensual.
Consent is a big issue, and it is the government's burden in a criminal case to prove any charge and all charges beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high burden of proof.
Combs is now asking a federal judge for a trial date next April or May, and we could see ex-girlfriend Cassandra Cassie Ventura take the witness stand. This despite an undisclosed settlement reached one day after Ventura filed a lawsuit against Combs last November, accusing him of rape and abuse.
Even if there are confidential civil settlements, there's always an exception in the law. They can still testify in a court of law if they are subpoenaed to do so.
Her media talk outside the courthouse showed that she is sympathetic to her clients and will fight to the end.
Women's rights attorney Gloria Allred represents some of the accusers of Combs in civil cases and spoke outside the court.
It's challenging because for many of them, remembering what they allege he did to them is triggering and traumatizing.
Thursday's hearing in Sean Diddy criminal case provided key updates regarding his racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. The core accusation is that Diddy used coercion and force to engage others in illegal activities. Notably, this is the third bail motion after 2 prior rejections.
American rap mogul Sean Diddy Combs has been denied bail as he awaits trial on federal charges. Combs pleaded not guilty to racketeering, sex trafficking and transporting for prostitution in a New York court. Prosecutors allege the 54-year-old created a criminal enterprise through his business empire, which he has allegedly run since about 2008. They claim Combs gave victims a variety of party drugs during extended sexual performances and that he used his business associates, staff and other personnel to help conceal his abuse. His lawyer says he'll appeal the decision to hold the rapper without bail. If convicted, Combs faces a minimum of 15 years in prison.
Diddy defense team presented strong arguments focusing on rebutting claims of witness intimidation, a significant concern in the case. They emphasized that Diddy ceased contact with grand jury witnesses once identified, arguing that prior interactions were related to civil cases, not criminal.
These toxic relationships were mutual. So now he's putting all the blame on them. Now he's trying to be better for the rest of his days. Oh, okay, well, he's learned his lesson, guys. He's trying to be better, so give him a slap on the wrist. If there's one thing we've seen, we should stand by people who are trying to get the help they need. Look, I'm all for past accountability, but when you go out and try to shame Cassie saying she's a liar and a clout chaser the way you did, and then you only came forward because the evidence you thought you paid off wasn't paid off, dude, you're dead. You're dead to me. You're donezo. Diddy is done.
The judge set a tentative trial date for May 5th, 2025, but given the case's complexity and vast discovery materials, including 90 terabytes of electronic evidence, delays seem likely. Additionally, the defense raised concerns over the leaked 2016 video showing Diddy allegedly assaulting his ex-girlfriend, pointing to possible prejudicial media coverage.
Combs is in jail, so his attorneys are asking for an expedited trial beginning in April or May.
Speedy trial really is going to depend on whether or not the prosecution feels as though they are ready for trial in the spring. Do they have enough evidence? Have they spoken to enough witnesses? And are they prepared enough to start trial in this early spring?
The defense is still trying to get Diddy released on bail, arguing he offered to comply with restrictive conditions that would have prevented any conceivable risk of flight or danger. The hip-hop mogul offered to sequester in his $50 million Miami estate, limit visitors, and give up his cell phone. but the judge found Diddy a threat to witnesses and a danger to women. Today, he'll appear before a new judge assigned to the case.
Based on what they're telling me, he's a monster.
Plaintiff's attorney Andrew Van Arsdale telling ABC News a growing number of women and men, nearly 300 now, are coming forward claiming they were invited into Diddy's luxurious world, drugged and sexually assaulted, often on tape. And the lawyer says it's not just Combs.
We've received a lot of accusations against very well-known celebrities that allegedly participated in these after parties, that were either in the room, maybe witnessing these sexual assaults taking place, or even participating in them.
The attorney has declined to name the celebrities and has filed no lawsuits against them or Combs.
Although the civil lawsuits that are allegedly going to be filed have no bearing on the criminal trial that would be happening, the criminal trial can have bearing on the civil cases.
His attorney says Combs emphatically and categorically denies as false and defamatory any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors.
However, the court remains unconvinced, deeming him a potential threat to witnesses and citing the risk of witness tampering as grounds to keep him in custody. His bail denial has been appealed to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, where his lawyers hope to overturn the decision.
We're going to take you now over to New York City. Just a short time ago, lawyers for Sean P. Diddy Combs spoke to reporters after today's court hearing. It's pretty brief, but let's listen.
How's he doing? I can never remember what I said over here.
How's he doing?
He's doing fine. Dr. King called it the law of unintended consequences. So sometimes the more you push a person down, the stronger they get. And so he's making an adjustment. He had his family here today to support him. We really want to put an end to all of the clowning that we see on the internet. This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences, and all of us are addressing it accordingly.
Anthony, is it a racist proceeding, as Mark has said? He's okay to stay at the NBC for now?
Nobody's okay with staying in jail for now. Okay, thank you very much. That's it for today.
All right, short comments from P. Diddy's lawyers. He said, in part, that these are serious proceedings with serious consequences. We'll continue to monitor everything.
The trial is expected to be one of the most high-profile legal cases of 2025, given Combs's fame and the seriousness of the allegations. The prosecution has suggested that more charges could be filed as the investigation continues, and the sheer volume of evidence, both digital and testimonial, will likely play a crucial role in shaping the trial's outcome. Federal investigators have hinted at the possibility of a superseding indictment, which could bring additional charges before the trial begins.
It was the music mogul's first appearance before a new judge who will preside over his trial on sex trafficking charges. The previous judge recused himself because of a relationship with one of Combs' attorneys. A trial date was set for May 5th of next year. Now, prosecutors say so far, they have seized 100 electronic devices from Combs. They're now working to extract data. 51 of them were found at his LA mansion during that raid in March. Others found at his Miami estate and on his person during a search at a private airport in Florida. Now, Combs remains in federal custody after previous requests for him to be released on bail were denied. He also denies all of the charges against him. Joining us now is ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky, who was in that courtroom. So, Aaron, first of all, it sounds like authorities also subpoenaed records from Combs' company as well. What's the latest there?
They did. We don't know what they subpoenaed, but we know that prosecutors believe Combs did not act alone. He's the only one charged, but they believe as the leader of what they've called a criminal enterprise. There were a network of people who worked for him, who enabled freak-offs, these orgies that women were allegedly forced to partake in after they were drugged and held against their will. So prosecutors are amassing a lot of evidence. That's all going to be part of this trial now set for May 5th.
The public's interest in the case shows no signs of waning as crowds of fans, media, and citizen journalists continue to gather outside the courthouse during Combs' appearances. The global fame that once celebrated Combs' contributions to music and fashion is now centered on his legal troubles, adding another layer of complexity to an already complicated case.
P. Diddy is an international superstar, and so you have to imagine that this is a case that is bringing people from all over the world. We've seen local local media here, national media, and yes, international media too, with also a huge showing among entertainment journalists. But we also saw today a lot of citizen journalists that were out here as well. People who grew up on Diddy's music, whose albums were the soundtrack of their lives. And they told me that they feel like they needed to come down here and to just catch a glimpse of it all. Of course, we know that Diddy remains behind bars at MDC, but that's not stopping the crowds or the interest in this case.
I'm studying forensic sciences, my big thing is women and children, to protect women and children. So when I heard all of this going down, it was, just the hair on my back just went up.
If he's doing things like this, he needs to be in jail. There's nothing. Diddy needs to go to jail if this is what he's about.
So you might be wondering how the crowds that we saw out here today compared to other high-profile trials like Ghislaine Maxwell, maybe Harvey Weinstein, even Donald Trump. I can tell you, at least from what I saw out here today, this is nothing like what we saw with Donald Trump. But Lisa, I would imagine that as this trial gets closer to its date of May 5th, that we might be seeing some of the crowds like we saw with Ghislaine Maxwell, people lining up really early in the morning, getting their tickets, trying to get inside.
As the investigation unfolds, the trial will serve as a significant moment in both Combs' career and his personal life. His family's unwavering support in the courtroom underscores the emotional weight of the situation, while his legal team continues to fight against mounting evidence and public scrutiny. The road to the trial is long, and with each hearing, the stakes only seem to rise.
A US judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male sex workers across state lines to take part in recorded sexual performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence.
That's it for now. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below. For more updates, hit the bell icon.